So this
No,
is why it's so freaking important to have these type of systems when you scale to someone like Russell's level, to be able to gain back that 30 minutes, because 30 minutes on the phone, if like we like to focus on like that, if you're in that 7-minute window of a phone call, like that's a good amount of time for you to be able to pre-qualify or disqualify and move them to the next phase. And then if you have 7 minutes a call, you're looking at 4 to 5 phone calls that Russell could potentially have live with people and pull out 1 or 2 incredible leads that he wouldn't otherwise unless he had a system like this.
welcome back, everybody, to Real Estate Junkies Coast to Coast. I am Rusty Ham on the West Coast. My co-host, Steve Mernick, is on the East Coast. Steve, say hey.
It's on the East Coast, guy. What's going on, Russell?
Nothing, man. Yeah, we just had a little rain out here, which is unusual for the Southern California folk, and we're all freaking out, right? Yeah, so Steve, again, this podcast it reflects on the kind of, again, real estate business. Yeah, we're doing real estate, but it can be with any business. So the 3 pillars that we focus on are mindset, skill set, and systems, right? And today's warm-up, again, we're both coaches, so this is our practice plan. We have a warm-up, we have a game plan, and then we have a cool-down session. So our warm-up today is going to be based on the systems of the 3 pillars. And today is going to be kind of, Steve, just describe that you get your journey, right? Because when we both started, it was paper and pencil, and then where we are today.
Yeah. So what's super interesting, right, is they go back to the beginning of when you first decided to get into real estate, Russell. You hired a coach. And then when you finally committed and you're there, you're ready to work, you start like literally, you're all ready to go. Your first week starts, and then you're like, oh my God, I got to learn how to talk on the phone. What is this tracking all about? What do you mean tracking KPIs and how many phone calls I make? What does that make a difference? Like you just get thrown into it. So today we want to talk specifically about the system piece. And it's interesting because when you first start in a business, and especially if you're someone like me, and I don't know, Russell, or when you started, if it was similar, but I couldn't even use a computer. I still type with 2 fingers, but I didn't even know how to do things, send emails and stuff like that. I think I had the same email address when I was like, I don't know, in grade school when I came into the community, which is crazy.
Was it AOL or SBC Global?
It might have been AOL. It may have been.
Right.
But what's cool is, so everybody starts somewhere, right? That's like the big piece here. And I remember a big piece for me, at least, was like, all right, I got this new business. I want to run as lean as possible, right? How do I build this for the least amount of money? How do I, but also be organized and all this other stuff? And luckily our mentor was very similar to us when it came to technology wise. Was like, listen, we can do this pen and paper. There are manual systems like 31-day folders. We will have these, you can have lead sheets, just stay organized and just keep things there and there. So the beginning stages of starting our business, which was super interesting, was literally paper everywhere. And it felt so organized, right? Because it was, for me, can't type and talk at the same time, but like everything was done by creating these KPIs daily, which we were tracking, like how many dials we were making, how many live calls we had, how many voicemails we left, how many leads, how many appointments we went on. If you're not tracking these things, there's no predictability. And then if you look at how it affects the mental piece, you feel like you're doing the same thing every day and you have no idea if you're getting any momentum because you can't physically see what, if there's any, like if I made any adjustments in your KPIs, it shows you when you're getting better or where you need to improve.
Yeah.
So if you don't have those kind of metrics, you're just driving in the dark. You have no idea where you're going. So where I was, and I'm sure like you, Russell, you use that system, that manual system, for as long as you can go until your business ramps up to a place where you need to make a change, right? Because now you have so many leads, you have so many follow-ups in place, and you're depending on your brain with the manual system, and eventually you have to move to the next thing. So what's very interesting is I know you recently, and there's so many evolutions of this, right? But give us an example of me. I'm giving you the prehistoric tracking system, right? Which I actually still don't mind it that much, but I have CRMs and all that stuff now. But what you're utilizing now so you can be more efficient and be able to touch more people. So what does that look like for you today, Russell?
Yeah, I'm exactly like you. When we first started, we did the 31-day folder. So I had 31 folders, right? And so I would open up that folder when I first started beginning, and I'm like, oh, okay, I have these 2 leads I'm going to call. And I would call those 2 leads. And then I would do my, initial dials. And if I got a lead, I would stick it in another folder, which is probably 2 days later or whatever. But then I started talking to people that, oh, I have a realtor, check back in 30 days. So then I'm like, oh, okay, where do I put this guy? So I have to create a 30-day folder. Or if they had a renter, and we're going to call those guys back, which they just rented it out. So we're going, oh no, I have a 6-month folder. So like you said, I had the 31 days turned into 60 different folders, because I had a 30-day folder, I had a 60-day folder, I had a 90-day folder. And then, like you said, once your funnel started to grow, it just started becoming okay. And I was a solopreneur, right? I didn't have an assistant, and I didn't have people. So then I transitioned to a CRM. I moved all my leads into a CRM, and I can call from this. But what I've done recently, which has helped me huge, we usually do 50-minute sessions, Steve, right? And we'll do a 50-minute session, which is we'll sit down and we block out everything. We dial for 50 minutes. And then we take a 10-minute break, and then we do another 50-minute session. So what I've done, with my CRM, I used to just dial from my computer, and in the 50 minutes, I would do roughly 25 to 35 dials in a 50-minute session, right? That's dialing each one by one, right? What I did to be more efficient now, because I looked at my KPIs, and I'm like, I'm not dialing enough. I need to get more leads in my funnel, because I want to ramp it up this year. I'm tired of getting a few deals every year. I want to start ramping it up and getting a deal a month. So I got a dialer. I dials 3 numbers at the same time. And if someone picks up, then it hangs up on or it leaves a voicemail for the other 2, which is pretty cool. And so now I went from 25 to 35 dials in a 50-minute session to 125 to 135 dials in a session. And I'm doubling my leads. So my dial sessions are 4 times what I used to do. And then I'm getting more leads per week, which is really cool. And I have my VA doing the same thing. So we're both just attacking the phones right now.
And what's interesting for anybody who isn't, let's say, familiar with just like real estate or being sales on the phone and how important KPIs are. So what Russell just mentioned was this product called Mojo. And what it is, like Russell said, it's an automated dialer. So you don't have to leave voicemails, right? So Russell records one voicemail and then inputs this CSV file of leads into this machine. And then it just starts dialing one after another. And if they don't pick up, the automated voicemail goes into place and the next one starts dialing. So you don't have to wait for the voicemail to actually go into place. So the reason why this is important, because when you start looking at test studies of time, because real estate, the time is currency here, you end up gaining back like 32 seconds every time you don't leave a voicemail. Okay.
Right.
So if Russell makes an hour worth of calls, right? Say he makes, I don't know, how many calls does it make in an hour, you think, in the Mojo, Russell?
I'm averaging like 130.
130. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say 60 of those calls, if he was manually dialing, go to voicemail, and it takes 30 seconds to leave a voicemail. Russell loses 30 minutes to just talking to no one on the phone. So this is why it's so freaking important to have these type of systems when you scale to someone like Russell's level, to be able to gain back that 30 minutes, because 30 minutes on the phone, if like we like to focus on like that, if you're in that 7-minute window of a phone call, like that's a good amount of time for you to be able to pre-qualify or disqualify and move them to the next phase. And then if you have 7 minutes a call, you're looking at 4 to 5 phone calls that Russell could potentially have live with people and pull out 1 or 2 incredible leads that he wouldn't otherwise unless he had a system like this.
And then let me just touch upon, it's not free.
Yeah.
It's not free. You touched upon it right when you started beginning. When you first start, and we do this with our stuff, we want to keep the cost low. We don't want you shiny object syndrome, increasing your monthly output meaning the money going out. We don't want you just throwing money away when you don't even know what you're doing yet. So it's important that you learn what you're doing. That's why we teach the fundamentals first, and then you stack, right? So I'm stacking, and then this is 4.5 years later, 5 years later. When I first started, I wanted to keep the cost low. So I had Google Voice, which was free. I had no notes, which was like, we're just $10 a month or something like that. And then you gradually, when you start getting deals and you start getting more leads and you feel like this is going to be a business that you're going to do in the future, then you're going to stack, and then you got to look at your monthly output and you're like, okay, I can afford this. So I'm trading some monthly cash flow in order to get more deals down the road. Good stuff. Anything else you want to add on that?
Yeah, I just think the toughest thing as an entrepreneur, especially like yourself and myself being like a solopreneur, there's a huge mental piece to scaling, because scaling comes with money and taking risks
Yep.
financially and chances that you don't necessarily know if they're going to pay out. But that's business in general. If there's no risk, there's no reward. So when you
Right.
get to a point where you've noticed that what I'm doing right now with my current systems, this is my maximum efficiency and capacity of how many deals I can do or how many people I can reach, you're forced to make a decision. Is this the place where I want to stay? And am I content with this kind of output or whatever this is producing financially?
Mhm.
Or do I spend a little bit more money knowing that since this is strictly a numbers game and I know my numbers because I've been tracking them for years
Yep.
and I know the predictability attached to it, now you're going to trust to make that next move.
Yep.
And that's the whole thing of growing as an entrepreneur that's difficult, because every level that you jump to will always, of course, come with this financial responsibility.
Yeah.
But when the time's right, when you've hit the wall.
Yeah. And let me just finish with that, and then we'll move on to our game plan. There's two ways of thinking. Oh, I'm gonna get a deal, and then I'll do the stacking stuff that you guys are talking about. Or I'm going to stack in order to get more deals. So as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, you got to make those decisions. And we find a lot of the associates in our community, they want to get a deal first, and then they'll do what we tell them to do. Sometimes that's backwards, because what if you don't get a deal? It's like, you're going to be stuck. Just like you said, you're going to be at this plateau where you're paying the minimum and you're getting X amount of deals per week or X amount of leads per week, and you're just not growing. And then you're getting frustrated and then you quit, rather than, okay, let me figure out how I can afford this, and let me ramp up my dials, and let me ramp up my leads. And then the deals will start coming in, and then it'll start paying for itself.
Yep.
All right, let's transition to our game plan. Our game plan this week, we've talked about a lease purchase where the mortgage and the deed stays in the seller's name. We're just agreeing on a price. We're agreeing on a length of term, and then we cash them out on or before that term that we decide on, right? We've talked about owner financing, where the house is free and clear. We give them a monthly payment. They're acting as the bank, right? And there's different ways you can do owner financing. We can probably spend 4 or 5 different episodes just on owner financing itself, and we probably will. But today we're going to talk about subject 2 with that owner financing component. There's 2 different ways you can do sub 2s. Most people talk about sub 2s where the person has no equity or they're behind on their payments, and then just Steve. But we're going to talk about the sub 2 with the owner financing component. So just define it. What is a sub 2? What does it mean? And then we'll get into, I guess we're going to talk about my recent deal, but go ahead.
So subject 2 on the long form is buying a home subject to the existing financing of the seller you're buying from staying in place. So basically, here's what this means. Russell has a home, right? And he does have some equity in it, doesn't need the money now. Maybe there's some kind of situation going on, and the way that we structure something together is that we put together a purchase and sales agreement where his equity that he does have is going to be cashed out by some specific date, right? But once that equity is cashed out, the mortgage still stays in that person's name, and we just keep the home until we pay it off. So there's no date on the mortgage, but for this specific scenario, what we're talking about today, where there's equity, there's a date in which the equity is due. So Russell recently, one of his sub 2s, like I've had different sub 2s like that were like that, and I've had other ones where there was zero equity and there was zero timeline in which I had to cash it out, because this person, the owner of the home, couldn't afford the home anymore. And I just happened to call at the right time after he had gone through multiple real estate agents who couldn't sell it. He lived an hour away. It was a $1,500 or $1,300 a month payment on the home. So I just came in, I bought the home, I sold it to someone, maintained the payments for as long as I could until the buyer in the home actually bought the home, and then just the mortgage was paid off. With Russell's deal, there was equity in it, and it was structured slightly differently. So explain, Russell, for how your deal went and how you structured it.
Yeah, I just want to again clarify with sub 2, the title is going to transfer from the homeowner to the business, our business, right? And then the mortgage is going to stay in place. So that mortgage is going to have the owner's name, and we're going to pay that mortgage company directly. And so it's completely hands off the homeowner at this point. They can leave, do whatever they need to do. We're going to make those payments directly to the homeowner. The title transfers us. Now we own the home, right? We actually own the home because title is transferring to our business. In my situation, the seller bought a home in the same city, I think it was just a couple miles away. And so he had 2 mortgage payments going on. And this is a city that's not cheap, right? So the home that he bought, he upgraded, and so he had a $6,000 payment on his new home and a $4,000 payment on this home that he was trying to sell.
Yeah.
So his outflow was $10K a month. And he had 2 fractured closings. And as you see, fractured closings are way up because people now with interest rates, they're not able to afford homes. So they get to the escrow report, and then it doesn't go through for whatever reason. It doesn't go through. So this guy had 2 fractured closings. He dropped his price significantly, tried to get it sold, couldn't sell it. So I call him up. I said, "Hey, we'll split it in the middle. So what you were trying to get and what you tried to get with the buyer fell through, and what you had it listed for, let's just split it down the middle. And I'll take over your home subject to the existing loan," because he wanted money up front. So I gave him 5% up front, and I transferred title to me. I took over those payments. Now I've stopped the bleeding. So now he just has 1 mortgage payment, and I put a tenant buyer in there, and it's all good. The good thing about it, this one, and again, when you're taking over payments, you want to make sure you want to look at the mortgage and the interest rate, right? So this guy had an interest rate of 2.5. It was a 15-year loan, so $2,500 is coming off the principal every month. So $30,000 a year is coming off the principal on this subject too. Now, the owner financing component, that was the sub 2 part, right? The owner financing component is that he had $300,000 in equity, right? So what we did is we agreed on that $300,000. I would pay him off in 48 months. 0% interest. Now, there's different ways you can construct that, right? Maybe you can talk about that component. This is the owner financing. There's different ways you can construct that with the seller. But talk about, hypothetically, let's say it's $50,000 that you own, right? Is there different ways you can do the owner financing component?
Yeah. So you did it obviously in best case scenario. It sounded like you have 0 interest rate. So it's 100, whatever you're paying him.
Yeah.
It's 100% coming off of principal.
Yeah.
So let's go slowly, just for anybody who's never done this before, to make sure they understand this. Look at if you have a mortgage or whether you don't, your mortgage payment consists of 4 pieces, right? It consists of your taxes, your insurance on your home, whatever interest is in that payment, which is for the first 9 years is basically all interest, and then principal. The principal piece is actually what's paying down the loan, right?
Yeah.
So if it's like $2,000 a month payment, usually out of that in a new loan, it's like only $300 or $400 is paying actually the mortgage down. And then there's $1,000+ a month you're paying for interest.
Right.
So what Russell did was he got rid of interest. And now instead of it being thousands of dollars of interest that's being paid, that's not coming off the balance, Russell structured a deal where it's all principal. So he's paying basically you can almost look like every month that payment to that person is like a down payment off the house.
Yeah.
Russell's collecting that's accruing over time.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. So that's the way to structure it. If you are a gangster like Russell and you know how to structure deals, that's it. Right. But it doesn't mean there's not a million other ways to make money, right? You're basically setting up a loan just like a bank would with a regular person. The only difference is that you're choosing an interest rate. And well, when I say you're choosing, you're negotiating it with the seller, of course. But when you do creative real estate deals, you're not doing deals for 6, 7, 8, 9% interest. You're like in this window of 0 to 4 or 5%, whatever it is, usually much lower than 5%, but you're making it so that never mind the fact that the payment is affordable for Russell to be able to pay the seller, but now you're making it so the payment's affordable for people to buy the home. And that's the reason why right now with interest rates that are so high, it's priced out so many people out of the market. Right. So creative real estate allows you to take what the bank is doing and what is turning down way more buyers than it ever has, because it's almost like every house you're trying to buy is like the payment's like almost like worth like $100,000 more than the house you're buying. The payment is so jacked up. So what Russell did is he was able to get a monthly payment on this house that was super affordable, where he can make and sell this to a buyer, which was affordable to them. And also he can make a good spread in between what his buyer's paying and what he's paying the seller. But you have all that control by structuring these deals creatively. And this deal sounds like a freaking home run.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Obviously I wanted to go 48 months, which depends on what the tenant buyer is going to do. What I could have done too is just, hey, here's your equity. And in 48 months, I'll pay that off in 48 months. Right. So I could have created more a payday. We call it a payday too, more of a cash flow on a monthly basis. I could have delayed the $300,000 in 48 months, and I cut them a check for $300,000 in 48 months. Or I can do this per month, and then I don't owe you that much at the end of the day. So there's different ways you can skin a cat, right?
I have a question. I'm just thinking now, and I don't even know what the answer is, but I'm just going to play around with this with you just to get my brain going and other people. 48 months from now, right? You pay off this summer. That means there's that principal part of the payment is no longer owed at that point.
Yeah. No? So I could maybe from 48 months, if I have 3 or 4 deals and I have some cash reserves, I can pay him off and then keep the home for forever. Or I can encourage the tenant buyer to cash out and get a loan and then cash the seller out at that point.
All right. So let's play a hypothetical here. I don't even know what the answer is, but so 48 months, you have a couple of deals going on. You decide to cash this guy out, right? You cash him out. When you cash that seller out, the monthly payment that's principal that you're paying to him will no longer be owed anymore, right?
Correct.
And how much is that principal payment?
$2,500.
If you do that, Russell, and you somehow keep that tenant buyer in the house, am I saying this and thinking about this correctly, that you will have opened up $2,500 of cash flow for you now?
Correct. And then what I can do with the tenant buyers, I can finance them. So I can become a bank. I can become their bank. So they don't have to go to a traditional bank. And then I can charge them interest. And it's definitely a cash cow, this deal, for sure, if I play my cards right.
That's cool. I'm glad I was thinking out, if you cash this guy out, obviously the cards have to line up where, what did you say it was $45K you got to pay him?
For $4,000 a month.
No, what's the equity?
Oh, $300,000.
$300,000. Okay.
Minus $30,000 a year. So whatever that's going to be.
Okay.
Yeah, true.
Okay. I wanted to just play that out because the realistic side is how you structure this deal makes it so that if you do cash this out or not cash out, cash him out, but keep the loan in place, now the deal changes again in an even bigger way financially for you.
And then hypothetically, let's say I get a few deals this year and next year, hypothetically, I can say, hey, I came in with some money. Would you take X, which would be lower? And I'm creating more back end money. All right, let's transition to our cool down. This is a cool down of our practice plan. And Steve, so associates, we got into it for various reasons. We're going to start interviewing some people. We're going to start interviewing some solopreneurs that are getting into the creative financing space. And who are we looking for? What kind of an associate, not an associate, but what kind of person would join our community, and what kind of interviews are we going to be conducting here?
It was like super exciting because me and you, Russell, obviously being farther down the line, we're how many years into this? 5+ years into this now.
Yeah.
So the people that we're going to be interviewing are like, for the most part, some of them you'll see longer down the road. You are going to see people who are in it right now, right? They are in the mix of either chasing their first deal. They've done a couple. They're starting to get momentum. People who have done a handful of deals that are starting to scale. You're going to see like a mix of different places that people are in their journeys. And for me, that's like incredibly exciting because I remember how rocky the road can be depending on how you allow your brain to speak to you. So that's why we talk about mindset so much. So it's really going to be interesting. I want to hear people's opinions about where they're at now, where they were before, what their biggest struggles were, what's their struggles now. The majority of the people that you're going to be hearing us interview, a lot of them are like, they have 40, 50 hour a week jobs. And they're building this business on the side that they're throwing 10, 15 hours a week at. So like we're talking about people who are savages that are hustling right now. And they're discovering themselves in ways that they have literally never discovered themselves before. Right. It seems like they're in these dark places, right? Where it's just difficult. You're doing something new that makes you feel super uncomfortable, but there's so much like room for potential growth and getting to really know yourself in these times that you didn't have an opportunity like for a long time, because a lot of them are really high level in their jobs, right? So you come into this real estate thing you've never did before, or at least this style of real estate you never did before. And now you feel like a baby deer, like Bambi. You can't find your legs, right? You feel crazy. It's really exciting though, because watching people go from this really uncertain, vulnerable, super frustrated to seeing them find their legs and their confidence, and you just watch them start to take off and like just change as a person is like the most exciting thing in the world to me. And we're going to get to play around with that. And that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited too, because we're seeing it firsthand, right? We're seeing the ebbs and flows, right? Because this is not easy, right? If it was easy, like Chris says, if the wind's behind your sail and you're full bar ahead because the wind is taking you, then everyone would be doing it. We call it embracing the suck. You're going to have your ups and downs. You're going to have like my first deal fell through back in 2020. I got my first, we call them takens. I got my first taken and it fell through. It's going to happen. And there's going to be frustrations. They're going to be like, I need proof of concept. How come this is not working for me? And then all of a sudden they get a deal and they get all jacked up and then it falls through. And then they're like, this sucks. So yeah, I'm reading a book called The Gap and the Gain. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. Pretty cool book. And it talks about just a general overview. We'll end it on this is that, a lot of people, they have this idea, they have a goal, right? Oh, I want to get 6 deals in a year, right? So that's their vision. That's what their ideal is. And they're not hitting it. And so they're looking at what they don't have rather than looking at the gain, which is what they have accomplished. So this is what we're going to get in with these interviews is not necessarily how many deals that they're making, because that's a lot of my life has changed. Your life has changed based on being in this business, right? And it's not necessarily the deals. It's all the little stuff that we've been doing behind the scenes and all the gains that we've made in our lives. I'm a better husband. I'm a better father now because of certain things that were given to me in the community. And so I'm starting to view the gains that I've had, not necessarily how many deals, right? The deals are going to come. The deals are going to become because of our grit and our, tenacity and our consistency. The deals are going to come. It's what are the gains have you accomplished from day one? And I'm gonna love to hear their journey and listen to them talk about all their gains that they've accomplished since they've been in the community.
Listen, man, and you know me, I wasn't like this before. I was not a vulnerable person. I was just like, I'm not telling you shit about me. And I'm fine. I'm awesome. I am not like terrified inside, and I am not super frustrated. This is really easy to me. And inside, I'm like freaking out because it's like being an entrepreneur, especially when you first start, you never had that experience before. If you do this alone, it is exactly that. It is the loneliest place in the world to not be able to grow aside other people. And to have the ability to be in this place of uncertainty and stress and just like your confidence has just never got hit like this before, because I think there's something very specific, in my opinion, about being an 18-year-old starting a job, never did before, and you're just not really a confident person. You haven't fell into your personality yet. But then when you start a business, when you're an adult and you're super, like you're at that most mature stage that you've been, you've already accomplished things in other places. You've already found your confidence in those other things, or you're an authority in your career. And then you go and put yourself in a position to revert back to that 18-year-old. It's super uncomfortable. And to do that alone, I could only imagine. Luckily, I didn't do that. I made the right choice. I joined a culture of people that were just like me that wanted to go through it together.
Right.
And to watch people like surrender to the ego piece of I'm smart everywhere I'm at. This is new, but I don't want to ask for help. I don't want to bother you whenever, and watch how they handle that, and watch how fast the people who surrender grow in comparison to people who are stubborn. Right. But regardless, this is going to be an absolute blast because there's nothing that makes me happier than getting inside of like the brains and the heart of people. And you remember what it was like, Russell, we're still there in certain places, right?
Oh yeah. We're still learning, and we still have coaches, and we still all that kind of stuff. So awesome stuff, Steve. Looking forward to it. Yeah. Great. And let's do it next week. Let's just start interviewing these solopreneurs, and let's hear their stories. Everyone's heard our stories. I'm sure they're tired of hearing us talk. So we'll get these people on it. We'll get
Russell,
these guys.
it doesn't matter if people tired of hearing me talk. I'm going to keep talking. I can't stop.
That's true. All right, Steve. It was great seeing you again, buddy. See you next week. All right.
All right, buddy. I'll see you, Russell.